Marietta, it's an absolute pleasure to see you. Welcome.
Well, in private aviation, the real work happens, before the client arrives. You need to know the lining, temperature, scent, sound, if they like, getting to the airplane with music, if they don't like music during the flight. And you need to match the client preferences. And you need to know all this before the client comes. Five-star service in private aviation is not about visible luxury. It's about flawless execution. And when it's done correctly, the client experiences a sense of ease and continuity. Nothing feels like rush, force, compromise. Everything should be well organized. You need to know how to show and have a nice presentation, and then you need to serve this food. So you need to have a plan B and always also a plan C, because if something, is not well or it was broken during the transportation, you always need to have a backup. I remember one time, when client tells you visibly exhausted. He didn't ask for anything, no drink, no food, no conversation. And what he didn't know was that before he arrived, the cabin had already been adjusted for him. The lighting was softened, the temperature was lowered slightly, and I delayed the service on purpose because I saw that he was exhausted. So when someone is exhausted, is not hungry, he wants to rest. And halfway through the flight, he said to me, this is exactly what I need. This is the best compliment that you can get from a client. And this is the 5-star service. They do not want to explain themselves several times. They don't want to feel observed. They want an environment to adapt to them, not the other way, because they're having probably they're in this aircraft like 6 hours, 7 hours, sometimes less, sometimes more. They want to feel like home. They don't want to feel like somebody's going with a tray all the time. Would you like some water? Would you like some coffee? No.
One of the things which I want to ask you on that note is when you have moments to say no to someone who gets everything and who has this lifestyle, how do you deal with that, Marietta?
Okay, well, you never say no.
Marietta, it's an absolute pleasure to see you. Welcome. This is for our audience today here. Marietta's career has been behind the scenes of luxury lifestyle. Marietta started as a cabin crew on a private aviation, then leading services team with the luxury yachts, and now she manages private villas between air, land, and sea. Marietta is here to share what this exciting world really looks like. Let's learn from Marietta.
Hello, how are you? Hello. Thank you
I'm
for
good.
having me. Thank you so much for having me here, Prem.
Absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure. You look as bright and beautiful as always, Marietta.
Thank you.
Let's start with the basics. What exactly is private jet flight attendant and how is it different from what we see in our regular aeroplanes, regular commercial flights, Marietta?
Well, that's a good question. A lot of people ask me about this question. What is the difference, Well, in private aviation, with the door closed, you become the entire cabin. There is not a hierarchy behind you, no backup team. Responsible for safety, service, discretion, and emotional tone of the flight. You are everything. And unlike commercial aviation, where everything is more standardized, more customized. You have 100 passengers, they eat the same food besides the allergies. In private aviation, is the client who orders the food and decides what he wants to eat and what he doesn't like. So private aviation is deeply personal. You are not just serving passengers, you are supporting people during a significant moment of their lives. And all this requires an in-depth knowledge of the aircraft, safety procedures, ability to anticipate individual needs. This is very important. Managing high expectations and you have to design for efficiency and consistency across the, your passenger. So there is every decision matters here because there is no buffer. You are the entire cabin experience. So that's basically the difference.
So it's a one man or one woman show, really speaking, is it?
Definitely,
Right.
definitely, it's like this.
This is really a fascinating what you just said. In fact, what when you have teams, they can pick up where the shortcomings are, where you can't keep up, where you can't do something, or where you miss it. Somebody else can pick up. Here, you can. Nobody is there to pick up, so you got to be full on and fully equipped. And this is what I understand from what you said. It's rather fascinating. It's fascinating. You mentioned about highly personalized service when you were talking, and I think most of us imagine luxury as something very visible, like a chandelier and sort of marble floors and so on, gold fixtures and fancy presentations. But I'm guessing that this what you are doing inside it's actually looks how does this 5 star looks like about 40,000 feet over in the sky? How does it look like, Marietta?
Okay. Well, in private aviation, the real work happens, before the client arrives.
Uh-huh.
You need to study what type of client is coming. If you work for a private owner and they have their own airplane, at the end, you know everything they like or the family likes or what kind of wine, all these things. But
Mhm.
preparing the cabin environment before the client, is a key. You need to know the lining, temperature, the scent, sound, if they like, getting to the airplane with music, if they don't like music during the flight. And you need to match the client preferences and you need to know all this before the client comes. So before the flight starts, there is like hours of preparation. You need to go shopping, the type or working with the catering, but you need to know what they like, what kind of food they like, if they have allergies, if they don't like fish. All these things you need to know before, to match the client preferences. So you need to understand also the cultural. If what kind of culture is your client, all these dietary needs and personal routines. So you need to coordinate catering, the plating, timing, and presentation because you are the entire, serving the fly. You have to platter if there is, you need to heat the food. You need to know how to show and have a nice presentation, and then you need to serve this food. So you need to have a plan B and always also a plan C because if something, is not well or it was broken during the transportation, you always need to have a backup. So I like, and basically in private aviation, when the passengers step on board, everything should feel effortless, seamless, and natural. If the passenger, your client is noticing that is too much effort in doing something, is because something is gone wrong. So you need to be very prepared before flight. It's not
Mhm.
only the service in flight. Five-star service in private aviation is not about visible luxury. It's about flawless execution. And when it's done correctly, the client experiences a sense of ease and continuity. Nothing
Mhm.
feels like rush, force, or improvise. Everything should be well organized. You know, I remember one time, what client tells you, everything felt effortless, and this is the best compliment that you can get from a client.
Mhm. Mhm.
I have a let me give you a real example about this. I have once a client that who boarded the aircraft visibly exhausted. He didn't ask for anything, no drink, no food, no conversation. And what he didn't know was that before he arrived, the cabin had already been adjusted for him. The lighting was softened, the temperature was lowered slightly, and I delayed the service. on purpose because I saw that he was exhausted. So when someone is exhausted, is not hungry, he wants to rest.
Yes.
So you know, I delayed the service, no questions, no pressure. And, you know, I was just only offering a little bit of water, but silently, you know, creating that calm environment on the cabin. And halfway through the flight, he said to me, you know, this is exactly what I need. And I didn't even know, you know. And this is the 5-star service. Anticipating without asking is so important in this business.
Mhm.
And that's when I realized, you know, luxury isn't about giving more or
Yes.
asking for more, or do you like this, do you want some water, what can I offer you. It's about understanding sooner what
Mhm.
your client needs.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Fantastic.
You know, there is not really a manual that
Yeah.
you can just say, okay, I have to do this to approach a client.
Yeah.
Communication with this type of clients, you don't use the same words that you
Yeah.
use when
Yeah.
you are flying commercial. You know, you need to know that there are boundaries, and it's not it's a totally different world. The single similar thing is that you are flying in an aircraft, but there is not really a manual that shows you, okay, I'm going to platter this way. You need to know and do your own research and, you know, have a lot of passion for what you do. And I started in commercial aviation, and after commercial aviation, I do training on corporate aviation, and they show me how to platter. They show me how to serve wine, even that
Yeah.
I knew before because I worked in restaurants before, and I got a background as a restaurant manager, and I started as a waitress also. But there is not really manual. You start learning with the getting experience during flights, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
you make mistakes, you learn from those mistakes, and you learning and keep growing and keep growing. But you know, the client gives you a lot of tips also. There's some clients that they are more open and they talk to you and share things with you, but there are other clients that they don't want to talk, they just want to work,
Yes.
or you know, or have peace in the flight and they don't want to communicate. So you learn this when you are working,
Yes.
and you need to have that type of psychology that know how to read the room.
Yes.
For working for elites in this type of jobs, doesn't matter if you are in a private job, doesn't matter if you are as a cabin crew in a private jet or in a, you know, high villa. When you work for these ultra high network clients, you need to know that there are boundaries, and you need to know how to read the room. This is the key of
Yeah.
success in this world.
Yes. Yes.
But as I
Absolutely.
say, there is not really a manual. Of course, there are some certifications that you can learn and you can do these training courses, but they don't show you really how to pour wine, like, you know, or some of them are very short and very expensive, of course, because they're certification, they're giving you, you know, the opportunity to flow with some flights, but then
Mm.
day by day is quite different. For example, you know, when I was flying in Miami, I was just having to be ready for when they say, "Oh, in 2 days we're flying," you know. So I
Yeah.
was going shopping because I knew my client already and I knew what they like. So I was going shopping, or I speak with the catering, making sure everything is ready for that date, making sure the timing, you know, making sure of the aircraft you have ice, lemon, all these things, you know, because then you are on air and someone wants a Diet Coke and there's no lemon, and people likes to have ice and lemon, and all these
Yeah.
things you need to make sure you have them before flight, you know. Or
Yeah.
if your client likes, let's say, X type of wine, without naming any brand, you need to make sure you have it, because if he's asking you for the best wine, he loves the wine and he doesn't have it on the flight, this is a big mistake, you
Yes.
know.
Yes. Yes.
And
Would you be
ahead.
sent? Would you be sent a list of things what they like from their household, or do they fill in a sheet, or how does this work in the
Yeah.
pre-arrival list? How do you get, and how does this work?
Well, normally, they have these companies that manage the aircraft and they communicate. They have a PA, a personal assistant that communicates with you. And, they say, well, this is the day we're flying. You're going to sleep in this hotel. They want this for lunch. Make sure they have chocolates, make sure, because, but you need to learn already when you're flying several times with the private owner, what do they like? You need to listen your client and what he's asking you for, because there are some basics that you always have to have in the flight, in your aircraft. But then sometimes they discover that is a new product or a new food and they love it and they say, well, I want this for the next flight.
Yes.
And sometimes they don't even say, but if you see that they already like this and they have it because maybe they bought this themselves when they were on the street or whatever, nobody has to tell you anything. You need to anticipate these things and say, okay, I saw them that they were eating this in the previous flight, that they got this type of chocolate in United Kingdom, let's say, and I'm going to buy myself now for the next flight. That way they don't need to go and buy it on the street.
Mm.
They have it already on flight. So these type of things, you need to learn with experience. The same with the music, they come to the aircraft and they like music or pop or they like a particular singer. So if they arrive, put that song for them, they're gonna feel really welcome because some of them, they start like coming to the fly and see the music and they start dancing, and so depends of the client. You have more opportunity to flawless that with other
Mhm.
clients. So it's not something standardized. As I explained before, the difference with the private aviation is not standardized. There are some points that they are, but the rest is on you. And
Yes.
it is in your ability to read your client, to see what he likes, to see how he is. And noticing how he feels that day because all are humans and sometimes no all of us are happy. We probably have some problem with the business or he has some problems with the family, so you need to know how to read the room and make sure you not interrupt, you are not like asking questions that you should not asking, and in this type of with this type of clients you need to be very
Yes.
discretion, make sure you don't go there when he's talking on the phone or when they're having a meeting, these type of things. And sometimes, uh, people maybe is asking in their head, but you have to put them the food over there. Well, when they say,
Yes.
I'm not going to start heating the food if my client is not hungry. This is not a commercial aviation that they serve the food for everybody at the same time. He will
Yes.
let me know, and I will see the timing and I will go through the cabin and I will say, oh, what did you think? I mean, you want me to serve you the food or you want to wait, And normally they say, yeah, go ahead. So it works different. It's another
Yeah.
perspective and it's another, way of work.
Yeah. That's brilliant. I get the gist of it.
Right.
From what you say is it's not carved in stone. It is very fluid. You
Yes.
take the form as it comes and deal with it as it comes. So what it means is you got to be fully present. The presence is the whole focus is there. You are all the time mentally, physically, psychologically present, so you can handle as and things appear and disappear. This is fantastic. It's fascinating. It's really
Yes.
fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, when I both things, or I have to go shopping or whatever, I always look for neat things, details, because this is based on attention to detail. Here is when you flourish a little bit. But most of these clients are not looking for flashy luxury. They are looking for control, peace of mind, discretion, and
Yeah.
sometimes people may think, what do they ask for? And of course, they ask for a specific wine or a particular meal or a special detail. But what they actually want,
Yes.
because this is superficial. They do not want to explain themselves several times. They don't want to feel observed. They want an environment to adapt to them, not the other way, because they're having probably they're in this aircraft like 6 hours, 7 hours, sometimes less, sometimes more, but they want to feel like home. They don't
Yes.
want
Yes.
to feel like somebody's going with a tray all the time. Would you like some water? Would you like some coffee? No. You go with the coffee, and you serve the coffee directly, and then if they want more, they're gonna ask you. You don't go like 7 times to ask the
Yes.
same
Absolutely.
question, because
Absolutely.
this bother them. They want to relax, or listen music or whatever. So it's the different service. They don't want to feel observed. This is important. You can be on the cabin, because we have to think that private jets, some of them are very small, they're tiny, and you don't have a lot of room over there. So do not go to the cabin all the time and check if they need something. Just stay away, because you can go like every 20 minutes, go around, try to go to the bottom of the aircraft, to the bathroom, to check if it's clean, for example. And that way, on the same time, if you want something, it's going to ask you for something, but don't go there and would you like something? No, this is not the way to do it. So,
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, you covered that question I was about to ask to you. What do they really want? You are not there for actually providing them with provisions or with the refreshments or anything, but you are all the time present but
yeah,
invisible. You are
exactly.
appearing when they feel that they want you. You are appearing on the scene. Is that something what I got out of this, Marietta?
Yes, but I mean, for this level of client, the greatest luxury is being understood without speaking. You
Yes,
know,
absolutely.
Mm, when they arrive, I wait for them on the bottom of the stairs. I help them with the hand luggage. I offer them wine or champagne when they arrive, hot towels, or fresh towels if it's summer.
Hmm.
If I know that they like this type of perfume, I got that perfume and I put this perfume on the towels. These type of details make the difference. But ultra high net worth clients, live in environments where people constantly want something for them,
Hmm.
want something from them. And as a result, what they value most is mental space and emotional safety.
Hmm.
They may ask you, for specific items, a brand of
Hmm.
wine, certain meal, particular setup, but those are surface preferences.
Yes,
The good,
yes.
the ones who make really the difference, is let them feel in control, you know, of their time, their surroundings. Do not question them repeatedly. And a client, when it comes to an aircraft, he really wants like to not think about anything, and he wants to think, okay, this person understands boundaries. Don't cross the line with me. It doesn't bother me. And I'm sure that if I'm going to ask something, she's going to make it. Like if he's asking me for silence, I'm going to be quiet. If he's asking me for this type of champagne, I'm going to bring it, because they are busy, and in their lives, they are doing a lot of things at the same time with this business. A lot of people surround them, all the time, noisy, traveling. And when they get to the aircraft, they want to have what they want. I asked this lady for wine, and he brings it to me, and I have it.
Yes,
And
yes.
sometimes in the aircraft, their wall sometimes doesn't work. It's like they have problems, because some people, they think that rich people that have problems, right? They do. They have a different ones, but they have. But when they come to the aircraft, they won't forget about the rest of the world. And if you know how to do that, you have probably 99% of success, you know.
That's fascinating. One of the things which I want to ask you on that note is when you have moments to say no to someone who gets everything and who has this lifestyle, how do you deal with that, Marietta?
Okay, well, you never say no. With this type of clients,
Yeah,
if you can avoid no,
yeah.
you should avoid no. But you can always use the correct words, like, okay, well, I'm so sorry, but at this time, um, it wasn't available, but I got this one, which
Yeah.
is, even better. If you don't mind, try it and let's
Yeah.
see if you like it, but I will make sure next time we have the one you like. You
Mhm,
need to know how to reply and without using the word no. That this is
mhm,
applied for all this business, all this
mhm,
industry.
mhm.
Communication is so important. Also, I think people think that, okay, I'm just and especially when English, for example, is not your mother language, because
Mhm,
sometimes in our own language we know, I'm from Spain, so I speak Spanish, but sometimes we don't know how to communicate properly. You
mhm,
need to
mhm.
learn which words you need to use. Communication is the key for a lot of success also. And if it's another language, it's not your language, like English in my case, you speak English, but you need to learn how to communicate to this type of clients in English. It's not the same to say when somebody is telling you, oh, thank you so much for this, and you reply, you are welcome. No, this is not working.
Mhm,
So you need to say, my pleasure, for
mhm,
example.
mhm, mhm.
There is it's the same, but it's not the same for this type of clients. It's not the same to say you're welcome, that
Mhm.
say my pleasure. So this is like, this tiny example, you can learn that there is some ways of how to communicate with this type of clients. And you need to
Yes.
learn also
Yes.
this communication, because it's very important. And also not only verbal communication, you need to know, no verbal communication, because our body also communicate things, the smile, the eyes, hands. So if a client is mad, imagine, and he's telling you, I don't like the food or whatever, you cannot
Mhm.
make like, or what is he saying, or why me, or get mad. You need to stay in your place, and know how to solve that situation, but our body communicates all the time, and we need to take care of these things also.
Absolutely, absolutely. So being mindful about not only the atmosphere, the environment, the situation, about ourselves also, the awareness about ourselves, how we
Yes.
present, what is the signal that we are giving out and everything. In fact, it is very fascinating that you say this, Marietta, because one of the now I'm developing a program which is based on this, which we generate from here, how we can get this going for people to get whatever they want, however they want to handle the situations. How do you not only with the skill, but from the how the energy you generate from you, how can you make that happen? In fact, this is going to come soon, but it's fascinating this point which you said now ties in very much with the concept which I'm going on. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, let's talk about the customization. So you have different clients, or much of the time you have similar clients. Then it's a customization you know already, and you keep on repeating. But when you have different clients, you want to customize. You still have the pre-arrival thing is been given, but they probably like it in a certain manner, certain way, and so on. This customization, how much of a part it is, and how do you really feel that this is what they want, or you learn as you go? How does this work?
Well, I mean, there are a lot of options. I was flying in the same aircraft. It was a private jet, but they were for more charter for different type of clients. So
Mm.
you can have the same aircraft one day, and there is a meeting, for example, and it's business people, business client that comes, and they want to be, in the area with their computers, and they're going to be talking on the phone, video calls, a meeting, a business meeting, and they don't want you to disturb them a lot. But the next day, maybe you have a family,
Mm.
in the same aircraft, you have a family, and they want that space that the meeting people used the day before. They have it like, music, party, chocolates, the dogs, because some families they travel with their dogs or their pets. And it's a totally different flight, the same aircraft. That's the way how long can or how far can go customization. So it doesn't have to be all the flights the same. And again, you need to know your client preferences, their routines, and you can customize an airplane for basically everything. Maybe is a singer or rock pop star who's coming with all the crew and on all the stuff, and they are planning to design their concerts, and they're thinking about that, and they're dancing on their craft, and we're gonna do this way, we're gonna use this dancing, we're gonna use this music. So
Wonderful.
everything can be
Yeah.
customized in an aircraft. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be always, someone that come and sitting and stay there quiet. No, it's totally different, and then you can have everything. So
Wonderful.
and that makes very more even more interesting, because a lot of people that come from the TV shows, they come from the movies industry, and that makes this even more excited.
Hmm. Hmm. Fantastic. And this might be a bit sensitive, but have you had occasions when you had some sort of an emergency or when you had to deal with something very, out of the cuff things, medical or emotional or even security related? Have you had anything? And if you had, how have you handled it, Marietta?
Okay, well, I mean, this, is more about safety protocols,
Mhm. Mhm.
and if you started speaking before, no, about safety, safety is never negotiable, first of all, but the difference lies in how to communicate it. The same communication is very important. In private aviation, the rules are not imposed. They are
Mhm.
explained with calm, authority, and respect. So if I
Mhm.
have turbulence, and the captain says we're gonna, need that everybody sit down because I don't know how bad it's gonna be this. Um, you need to approach the client with care. Don't impose. Be confident with the regulations and says, I'm sorry, but the captain just communicated me that we're gonna go through turbulence, and my suggestion is that it's better that we sit down. You know, and I'm sure that the client is gonna sit down right away. All depends on how you communicate, because they like to feel safe. They like to know the reason clearly. You can go like, oh, I don't know what's gonna happen. He just turned around and said, everybody sit down. No, because the client wants to know what's happening. So if you explain to them this, I'm sure they're gonna apply, this. And then having some moments of medical. I have one experience with one of the clients that he was feeling sick. Suddenly, start feeling sick, and when this is happening, you start thinking about the reason why he's feeling sick. Maybe the food, maybe, but at the beginning, when you are not experienced, you start thinking about these things. But the most important part is that you need to react and forget about the cause, because then if you go to land, they will find the cause, and there is a medical, of course, and they will bring it. But we're human beings, and when we have these emergencies, times our brain flows like
Yes.
everywhere. So important thing is focus on the client and try to calm them, explain to them that you're there, that you're going to help them, and bring them some water if it's necessary, but create that, you can panic. You can be in panic, because if you panic, the client is going to notice this. But that applies to commercial aviation also. You need to know the regulations, you need to know the protocols, how to react when a passenger is sick. And of course, maintain that communication directly with cockpit. Because if they need to land, they need to know what's going on in the cabin. And this is very important. You cannot be like there trying to calm the passengers and making sure that he is breathing. First thing you need to do is following the protocols, and you need to communicate immediately with cockpit, because if cockpit needs to, go down or whatever, they need to know what's going on. So it is important. But this client, he got better, and he suddenly was feeling better, and everything, was okay. But when something happens medically or emotionally, your role is to be the calm in the room. So if you're not the calm in the room, you're alone there. And imagine you are transmitting to your client your panic,
Yes.
your nervous. You have to be calm, try to manage the situation quietly, professionally, and without panic. And the goal is always the same: resolve the issue while preserving dignity, privacy, and calm. This is very important. And client maybe may not remember every detail of the flight, but they always remember how safe and support they felt. And this is important, because during a flight, passengers suddenly began to feel unwell. It can be dramatic, but it can be very bad. It can go even worse. So you
Yeah.
need to be prepared and always be in contact with the cockpit. Make sure you keep the cabin atmosphere calm. This
Yeah.
is very important,
Thank you, Marietta.
Yeah.
Um, just before we go, if you have a few minutes, can you tell us about your we have seen your life on the aircraft, off the aircraft. How is your week will be back when you've been employed at the time? Take us through for the audience to feel how 1 week of your life could be.
Well, I mean, as a cabin crew, as a private cabin crew, it depends of the days that you are out. Um, I recommend flying. It can be exhausted, exhausting. It looks like a very, and it is, like a wonderful life that you're traveling, seeing places, and you travel all over the world. But working as a private cabin crew is more challenging, and you need to be in good health, good, make some sports, make sure you go walking, and you have fresh air. The pressure of the aircraft also affect our bodies. Yeah. So, I used to do a lot of mindfulness. I try to be, always in the present, make sure that I'm focused. And my life is a regular life. The difference is when I'm flying, I'm out of my environment. You are basically out of your comfort zone. And when you are out of your comfort zone, you need to be very focused and make sure everything works well. And for that, there is not an exercise that you do when you're flying. There is a previous exercise that is a way of living, taking care of yourself. Try to eat a good food. Try to do some exercise. Try to do a mental training and focus on how it's going to be the flight. I like to focus on how it's going to be the flight, what I'm going to buy. 2, 3 days before you start like visualizing how it's going to be the flight, how you're going to welcome the passenger. And then, when you start flying, probably you go into 2 or 3 different cities in 1 week. So you go to the hotel, a chauffeur is coming and brings you to the hotel, and they help you and go shopping with you, and they bring all the items to the aircraft. to make sure they clean the aircraft properly, that you have all the items you need. And then when we're ready to go, we start flying again and then come back, so on. So when when you come back home, you have, well, sometimes during flights you have some rest time, and you can go to the beach and you can visit cities, which is the best part of the job also, But for me, I can tell that it was the best job I ever had.
Mhm.
Some people ask me, but you now are in villas, but you are more relaxed. You sleep in your bed, and with the age, we're looking for these things. But I have a missing here because I have it in my blood. I love flying. I have been an executive cabin crew for so many years, and sometimes we missed this type of lives because we like traveling, and this is basically a good profession. I always tell everybody, if you want to be a flight attendant or a cabin crew, go for it. Do not delay it, start from now, because it's a wonderful business, it's a wonderful industry. And I tell everybody the same: go, 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 do it, do it, do it. You will not regret.
But it's not for everybody, isn't it? I mean, it's everybody can't be uh, so much full on, switched on, and even if they are switched on, will they have the intelligence to adapt? You said the
Right.
situations are fluid. They have to adapt. They have to keep on uh, getting things in order as they go. So.
Yes.
What is that if a young person feels that I have this one two three, I could be, and I love traveling, and I could be a steward, I could be a private flight steward, so he or she, they can reflect and to see that yes, this is what I want, so
Well,
what would you, as an experienced person, what would you say the three things what they can see in the mirror and see, yes, this is good for me?
well, friend, there's not only three things. This is much more than we think. You need to be a polite person. You need to have some education. You need to know how to speak. Also, you need to train yourself, get your certifications, and make sure you comply with the legal, certifications to fly. Make
Mhm,
sure that you know how to manage, when there is a problem, when it's a critical situation. You need to know how to stop a fire. There is not only one thing.
mhm,
But, if we talk about this type of ultra high network clients, for me, is discretion, you know, anticipation, and then the ability to read the room. If you have this skill that you are, looking all the time, seeing what they want, what they don't want, you need to learn how to read the room. Is one
mhm.
of the most important skills in elite service. Doesn't matter
Wonderful.
wherever you are. If you learn how to read the room, how your client is feeling that day in a villa, in a private jet, you have 85% of the job done,
Mhm.
because it's the key of this business.
Wonderful. It has been an absolute pleasure, and I've learned so much. We all have learned so much from this, Marietta. I have some more interesting questions, but maybe we will get this going next week. And also, next week, probably what we can do is your other career, which is the yacht. Maybe we speak about the yachts in that session. But one thing I was fascinated about is to learn about the wine service in 40,000 feet above is different than the wine service we do on land, right? So the opening of the wine and so I would love to learn on that from you, and we could do a yachting next week if you have the time, Marietta. It has been an absolute pleasure. We enjoy talking to you, and I wish you all the best.
Absolutely, anytime. Thank you so much for having me. It has been a pleasure for me too. And I will see you next time. I'm ready. Always ready to go.
We are ready. We are looking
Thank you so
forward to
much.
it. We are
Thank
looking
you.
forward to it. Thank
You
you.
too. Thank you.
Bye.
Take care. Bye bye.